Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining our first monthly session of the Lonely CEO series in partnership with Cate, Luzio and Luminary. Firstly, I hope you and your loved ones are keeping well during what's been an unbelievably challenging few weeks and months for so many people. I'm Juliet Scott-Croxford, I'm CEO at Work Media, and I'm delighted to introduce this new series and our special guests. Our moderator, Cate Luzio, CEO and founder of Luminary, Mindy Grossman, CEO of WW, formerly Weight Watchers International, Beatrice Dixon, founder and CEO of the Honeypot Company, and Sarah LaFleur, founder and CEO of M.M.LaFleur. Welcome everyone. How are you all doing?
It's great to be here with everyone.
Thank
you
for having us.
Thanks so much.
Many of us have been impacted by the global health pandemic, and we're heartbroken and outraged at the racial injustices that we've seen occurring across the country. The scenes and the conversations we're having as leaders at this time are uncomfortable, and I think that the world will look very different when all of this is over, but I'm hopeful that they'll move us forward positively. And I think the conversations we are having will make us better and more empathetic leaders. We first launched this series with Cate at the Women and Worth Summit for our Women and Worth community back in March, and little did we know that that was just about to enter into a global health pandemic and the challenges that we've seen over the last few months. So it couldn't be a more timely and relevant series, I think, for leaders that are leading through these challenging times. So I'm so excited to kick this off. And really the essence of this series with Luminary is to open up discussions of how leaders are navigating the recent crises, from managing the stress of leading teams through uncertain times, to tackling the challenges of launching new products amidst a pandemic, to developing a more inclusive and diverse workplace and workforce, and why empathy and open communication and transparency are needed now more than ever from the C-suite. So by leveraging a network of CEOs and business leaders and entrepreneurs with different perspectives, this monthly series is going to tackle how we lead from the top down and how CEOs can handle specific challenges and lessons to be learned from what to do and what not to do as leaders in specific situations. And we've got an incredible group of speakers with us today. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Cate, who's the CEO and founder of Luminary and our moderator for this series, to introduce the speakers and get the conversation started. Cate, over to you, and thank you.
Great, thanks Juliet, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm really excited. I see a lot of luminaries on here, and I'm sure a big part of the Worth community. So welcome again. Let me just set the stage here. So I've had the unbelievable fortune in the last, we've been open a little over a year, but in 18 months, all three of these incredible leaders, Sarah and Mindy, have all spoken here at Luminary. And I've also gotten to know them personally, as I would call them mentors, as I've begun, again, a little over a year ago, my CEO journey after leaving 20 years of a career in finance. And so when Juliet and I discussed having this column, I said one of the great things to do would be having a live series. We all know that we're sheltering in place. We're not allowed to have events yet. We will eventually. But I didn't want to waste time, because I think the voices of so many of our women leaders are out there, but we've got to amplify them. And it's something that we do at Luminary. It's something that the Worth segment does, particularly Women in Worth. And so we are here today to hear from these, again, trailblazing, just badass women that I admire, that I can call friends, as well as mentors. And so, as Juliet mentioned, we have Mindy Grossman, the CEO of WW, formerly Weight Watchers, B. Dixon, founder and CEO of the Honeypot Company, and Sarah LaFleur, founder and CEO of M.M.LaFleur. So welcome to these incredible women. Normally, I go into your stories and we do a lot of that, but I really want to get right into it. I think the majority of people on this call will know you, but it's been an unbelievable 3+ months. In a nutshell, we all know a global pandemic, shelter in place for most of the world, historic levels of unemployment, multiple continuing violent racist incidents, protests in every state of the United States and many countries, the beginning of reopening of our states, cities, and economies, and a historic Supreme Court ruling for Article 7 against sex discrimination. wow, to think all of this is happening in 3 months. Mostly we would think that's happening in years. You are all leading companies of different sizes. And it's been in a very emotional time as an employee, as a leader, as a human. So I would love to hear from each of you perspective on how it's been for you professionally as a leader of your company, but also personally. And maybe Mindy, we can start and kick it off with you.
Sure. You know, this is a confluence of crises that I don't think any of us could ever have imagined. And when I took my last company public in August 2008, you know, I thought that was the extent of really leading in crisis, never having imagined what would be happening now. And the learnings from then and the learnings from now, it really is true that you are not just the CEO now. You are the chief crisis officer, you are the chief communication officer, and you are the chief hope officer. And it's so important how you show up as a leader, because that's going to be reflected throughout the entire organization. And as much as we all are facing a level of uncertainty that we're not used to, the key to control what you can control, be calm, take charge, make the critical decisions. I've been known to say many times, never waste a good crisis. Mm-hmm. And I also think that as hard as it is an incredible opportunity to think of how you want to come out of this, whether it's as your brand, as your business, where are the opportunities? And that's certainly what we have been focused on. And I know that I've never communicated more to the organization or even to our members than I have over the past 3.5 months. And I think, you know, what we have found, whether it's town halls, I started something called the Inspire series as well to talk about the issues as they've come up in very honest, real terms. And even when we've had to make difficult decisions, we talk about them and we really explain the whys and what we need to do for the business. I think the other thing that's been really important, and I think women understand this even more than men, the word vulnerability used to be thought of as a weakness. It's actually your greatest strength. And I think people really appreciate the honesty. And, you know, everyone in your organizations are nervous right now. There's not a single person. Uncertainty is an anathema to calm, right? But if people understand the strategy, exactly what you're doing, why you think you're going to come out of this stronger, why you had to make the hard decisions, I think those have really been the most important things for us.
And you, before I go to B and Sarah, you at WW have literally transformed your business well ahead of that planned transformation around digital. So, and the stats are incredible and unbelievable. Can you just give us, Mindy, that couple of lines on what you've done in this 3 months?
Yeah, so just very quickly, we've been in the process of a major transformation of the brand and the business in the last few years, with significant investments in our digital and technology, moving the brand not just as the leader in weight loss, but to a full ecosystem of wellness, with everyone, all 5 million members, certainly on our digital platforms. When it became clear that we were going to have to not only close our offices, but close our studios around the world to ensure the safety and security of our employees and our members, there was a third element, though, that we felt was critical, that we couldn't let people lose their communities, because people need inspiration, motivation, and support now more than ever. So in a period of 6 days, we reallocated the entire product tech team We trained 14,000 coaches and guides around the world and simultaneously launched all our workshops virtually. Give you a perspective, we had about 30,000 a week. That first week, we launched 15,000 workshops because we consolidated some. And that move could never have happened if we hadn't created both the technology and the agility within the organization for people to be able to pivot and pivot quickly around innovation. So that was major. So not only did we do it with the member in mind, that is the reason why our retention has stayed at an all-time high, and so has our digital recruitment, which is the highest in the company's history, even though our studios have been closed. So by having a complete focus on what we needed to do as a brand and utilizing our technology, that's what actually had the positive benefit on the business. Mm-hmm. And that ability is actually going to help accelerate our transformation, reduce our physical footprint, and really become faster and more quick around personalizing the behavior.
So I wanted Mindy to go through those stats because she and I had a conversation, and I was feeling really good about Luminary because we had done at that point, I don't know, 150 virtual workshops. And when she said these numbers, I mean, the sheer volume in 6 days, moving that literally online is a feat in itself. And then doing it while everybody's working from home, I just think is, again, it's down to the team and the leadership, but incredible. And I wanted everyone, I saw some eyes going, what? So I wanted to make sure we got that, Mindy, because I think it's really important in the story of what you've been able to do as a leader, but also as a transformational leader. B, so I also had, B and I had a great conversation on Friday and on my Gold Diggers on LinkedIn Live. And you are kind of going back and forth a little bit between Brooklyn and Atlanta. You've got this great feminine care products company, right, that relies on a supply chain and vendors and distributors. What's been going on with you?
Much like, I mean, I think, yes, what Mindy did is absolutely remarkable, but I think the biggest takeaway for me is that they were already in alignment to move like that, right? And so, what we've been doing is just working to be in alignment, There's so much that has been not in our control. Our supply chains have been affected majorly because we're in all of the areas that are menstrual care manufacturers are making masks, right? White manufacturers are making hand wipes and sanitizing wipes and things of that nature. Our wash and our skincare product, like our actual, like our wash and our creams and our suppository, those manufacturers are making hand sanitizer and hand soap. And so the lines have just, the supply chain lines have just been, the takeaways that we've gotten because we are over communicating with all of our manufacturers. We're over communicating with our retailers. We're over communicating with our customers. But what we've heard from every single one of our manufacturers is that their production lines have been so inundated with all of these things. And it could be that the market is demanding it. It can be that governments around the world are demanding it, right? Like my pad manufacturer, they actually had to make a deal with the government in China to make masks, right? And so that has been hard, because the lead times increased. And, so something that could have taken me, because some of our manufacturers were, we're not huge, but you know what I mean? But we're a lot of their business, right? So the lead times may have gone from like 4 to 6 weeks to like 6 to 12 weeks, right? And so there's so many things that are outside of our control. You know, we've worked really hard with our retailers, you know, to really set the expectation instead of saying, hey, I can't send you any of this. It's what we've said is like, okay, I have, for example, 4,800 of these that I can send you every single week, right? And that's what I got, right? And I have to split that all these ways because we're in Target, Walmart, Walgreens. See, you know, we're really fortunate to be in all of these retailers, you know, at a time when demand is high, you know, but we're only able to produce what we can produce, right? And we are really beholden to our suppliers, to our raw suppliers. So it's been challenging. The team has been extremely stressed, you know, but you know, just like Mindy said, you know, being the person, you know, to be here to lead them, you know, my thing to them is if we can't control it, give it all that you can. And outside of that, look, what can we do?
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
Plus, I think you said it, and as did Mindy, I think you are both, as leaders and as a company, because it stems from the top, over communicating. You're communicating with your staff, you're communicating with your community, which are your customers, you're communicating with your vendors and suppliers, and over communicating, right? So people understand versus you're in this situation where, oh my God, I haven't heard from them. And you don't want to lose, first of all, you don't want to lose a customer, whether that's the end user or the end customer or that distributor like a Target, but also it's on the manufacturing side. And some of this is the distributor, it's the greater good, right? It's sort of taking that back seat. And B, I'll just add one thing onto that. It's also for all of us been, and we talked about this a little bit on Friday, but an emotional time given, yes, there's the global pandemic and we're running companies and you've got responsibility. You're also a Black founder, a Black woman in the midst of all of these racist, violent events. You're sitting in Atlanta where they've taken place. How does it feel emotionally, and have you been able to just kind of power through that?
Emotionally, I mean, like when George Floyd died, I think there's been so many humans that have left this planet for reasons that just were completely unnecessary. And that there could have been a plan B, plan C, right? Like there could have been it just could have been done remarkably different. But George Floyd, me and a lot of my friends, there's so many people that I know. You guys, I'm in the office. If you guys hear some background, I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
This was different, you know? But I think it's different because energy is a real thing, right? And connections are a real thing. And we are all connected to everything. Nothing is different, right? And so we're not just, you know, nobody there isn't events, there isn't concerts, there isn't trade shows, there isn't, you know, that people are turning off from the news, right? People are watching less TV, and actually, which is why WW is doing so well, because people are really taking control or doing their best to take control of their health. And that is what people are focused on right now, right? And in that, people feel. And when everybody is feeling at the same time, it's heavy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so it's been heavy. You know, my brother, Cy, who's my co-founder, my best friend in the whole wide world, you know, he's been doing a better job at it than I have. He's really good at meeting people where they are. He's really good at understanding. And so I'm working to learn from him, you know, but it has been challenging. and one of the reasons why it's so challenging for me is because the construct of racism is so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just know we don't have to choose it,
Right.
you know? And so it's, you know, that's the hardest part. But look, we're focused. We're doing everything we can. We're building a content. We're building a content. I don't even want to call it a content strategy, but we're focused on bringing healing to our community, right? I don't want to just talk to people. I want to be active with them. I want to like physically do things. Let's meditate. Let's do some yoga, right? Let's talk to a sex therapist because that's fun, right? Let's, you know, let's find ways to heal, because that is really what is at that's really what's needed at the foundation of this time of so much pain, where it started from COVID and then went into all of these Black men dying unnecessarily.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah, and you are. And again, you're such an example of a strong leader, but also to Mindy's point, you know, showing this vulnerability is so important, I think, for the community, but also our people and our customers. You're human, and showing that side that can be so fundamental in a leader, I think, you know, blows all these old myths out of the water around what you need to have to be the CEO or run your own company or be a manager. And you know, Mindy is doing the same and incorporating that whole idea of wellness into our lives. We're able to do that probably more than we ever have been, because we're not spending time commuting. We're not spending time flying.
Right.
You're at your home. You may not still have tons of hours in the day, but you're able to incorporate that.
Right.
Sarah. So Sarah is one of the most compassionate leaders I've ever met, and you talk a lot about mental health and bringing a lot of what Bea was talking about, healing, and you've been talking about well before COVID. And you've also, as M.M.LaFleur, has done some pretty creative things around your products, because people aren't going to work, they're working from home. So tell us a little bit about what your journey has been, Sarah, as a leader and as M.M.LaFleur.
Yeah, I think, I mean, COVID really took us by surprise. We were having a really strong start to the year, and we have partners in East Asia and Southeast Asia. So we were, I think even back in January, we were, you know, getting wind of the fact that our suppliers were struggling to stay open, and actually many of our factories closed. And at that point, it was just delays in our supply chain. And I think in many ways, I was naive about it. And so we did start doing some financial forecasting at that point, saying, okay, what if COVID really actually comes to, you know, the US? What does that look like? But the worst case scenario, I think we had 6 or 7 scenarios planned, is not, you know, does not even compare with where our business actually went to. And I mean, the funny thing is, I think it happened literally overnight. You know, there was a Monday in March, which was one of our strongest retail days. And we said, maybe like COVID won't be such a big thing. And then by Friday we were closing our stores, all of them. So it was shocking, I think, speed in which everything happened. And I think one of the strengths that we have as a business is, yes, M.M.LaFleur, I think a lot of people know us as a company that makes workwear, but we've always considered ourselves a company for working women. And so when we thought about our customers, you know, it's really also inspiring to hear Mindy talk about this community aspect. I think that's been a big part of our business. We had a Slack channel going for our VIPs for quite some time, but we actually opened it up to our entire customer segment, and it has become a thing of its own. We don't even really manage it anymore. Customers are checking in with each other every morning. There's a roll call. And what came out of it, many things came out of it. But one of the things that came out of it was a job board, because many of our customers lost their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're posting opportunities that they have heard about and sharing them with each other. So, really not talking about our clothes at all in those situations, but really just bonding with each other because I think they feel like they're in good company. And obviously I think what's clothing is become a little bit of a respite for them. And so whenever we launch something new, or our stylists jump in to talk about a new color, it's a mental break from everything that they're going through. We've got a lot of working moms who are finding it incredibly stressful. So I think there's a Slack channel just dedicated to parenting tips and activities you can do with your kids to keep them busy. So we're really engaging with them in a very different way. And even our merchandise, just even in terms of what was selling, we saw the sales for dresses and suits just, drop significantly. But then what picked up was these pants with elastic waistbands, knitwear, t-shirts. We were lucky to launch t-shirts in April, totally unrelated to COVID. We had timed it for April, but it quickly became 5% of our sales. So it's definitely saw a big shift, but I think that connection with our customer, like Mindy and Bea talked about, like that is so much of what is important to the business. It's not even really talking to her about the product. It's really making sure that we stay in touch with her, so that those who can shop, I hope they continue to shop, but for those who are not ready to shop right now, we continue to stay top of mind for her.
And, Sarah, when we first met, I had the opportunity to go to a breakfast that you had hosted at your showroom in Bryant Park. And again, you talked a lot about compassion as leaders, tying in that idea again of vulnerability. This is 18 months ago, if not more. I think Mary had we weren't even open yet, but a lot of what you talk about, and this is going to be for all three of you, is this idea of being, and I know a number of people that I see on the screen are founders, they're entrepreneurs, they have side hustles, but being a CEO, being a leader can get extremely lonely. I mean, you and I have personally had this conversation over drinks as well. Yeah. How are you as a leader just dealing with the stress and of the ups and downs of this time? Because in a normal day, we have that as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a CEO. But now you're just adding all of those things that I started at the beginning. How are you personally dealing with or muddling through, I should say, and who are you looking to for support?
Sure. I would say I'll answer your last question first. I rely a lot on my executive team. I actually, I have not always had, I've always had like very strong individual executives, but maybe just not the kind of cohesive, what I like to call my Power Rangers of executives. And I feel like I finally got to a point, maybe end of last year, where I was like, wow, I think I finally pulled it together. I think I finally got this team together. And it's the first time I think I've felt that way as a founder. And it's, don't get me wrong, like the lonely moments definitely still continue. But I think it's felt a lot less lonely because I'm pretty honest about what my fears are, whether it's business or funding or customer acquisition or retention or what have you. I think I'm allowed to, I can kind of drop my guard and be really candid about what those are. And I think the executives that I have are saying, like, they share the burden equally, if not even more. I think they really see it as like, okay, this is a problem that I'm owning and I'm going to solve. Mm-hmm. And so I think that for me has been a big, just personal growth moment for me over the past year. I think aside from that, like and you know, we've talked, I mean, I think I've shared with you some of my mental health challenges over the years. I've you know, struggled with anxiety, and it's, so I always come back to, you know, checking in with myself first. I think I'm a firm believer that you can't really make good decisions unless you're in a good place. You know, my grandmother passed away last Sunday, and I was, you know, we had so many important things to do last week, but I just ended up like saying like, sorry, I got to check out. And, you know, I still took like the really, really important calls that I just knew I couldn't skip. But it was, and I went to, my husband and I went to the Catskills just for like 2 nights, and to like see trees. You know, it was the first time I got out of the city since February, and I was, it was so good for me. And it was just a reminder like that I have to come back to that place first and foremost. So maybe I'll leave it at that and let Bea and Mindy jump in too.
Yeah. I mean, just to give a perspective, you know, similar to Sarah, I'm very fortunate to have an incredible executive team and a supportive board. When this first arose, I had a board meeting a week where I would send an update the night before, and we would just walk through things. Now it's every other week. And, but I would say that over the course of these last couple of years, we've made some significant changes to both the executive team and the board. And because it really represents a lot more diversity and a lot more diversity of background and thought, it's been incredibly valuable. I think the second thing that has been important for me is I have what I call a group of trusted advisors, right? Many of whom are other CEOs that I've known for many years. And we've met together in small groups. I'm also part of the Fortune CEO Initiative. And I find that in this circumstance, listening and learning, no matter what level you're at or however long you've been in business, there are things we've not experienced before. So the collective wisdom I have found very, very valuable. And then, you know, somehow trying to find ritual in a state of chaos to manage through. I can almost get over ritualed, but in the very beginning, it was very hard for me to turn it off. Very hard for me to turn it off because, you know, I kept thinking, you know, how do I do everything I can for, you know, my teams, even if I'm making hard decisions? How can I do everything I can for my members, my family, my this, my that? You know, I said, it's kind of like the expression, you know, put the oxygen mask on, you know, first. So what I actually started doing a few weeks ago is I don't let my teams and my assistants book anything on Friday. And I spend a half a day just catching up and evaluating the week and setting myself up for the following week. And then I actually have tried to take a bit more time. Now, of course, something happens, you end up having a board meeting on a Saturday. So, you know, we're all in a very intense environment, especially the last few weeks.
And I know personally, one of the joys that you have are having 2 beautiful granddaughters. You had your daughter and her and her family up with you for several weeks when all of this started. That's a great way to just put things into perspective as well, I would assume, because you've got an outlet to say, I'm running this major company. There's lots of changes. There's everything that's going on. But at the end of the day, like you said, you have other things too that you have to focus on.
Yeah, well, actually, as it relates to them, what I keep sitting here saying, that as a leader and as a business, if we can't do everything we can, and if I can't use my voice and my platform to ensure that they will have a better future, right? Why am I doing all of this? Why are any of us doing all of this? And to see what's happening right now, that I don't want that to be their future. So to think of what we're doing in the health space or health disparity or racial injustice or income, whatever that is, you know, how can we do more? And unfortunately, you know, and again, Sarah, I'm sorry for your loss. I lost two friends in the last 6 weeks. One who was 48 and one who was 51. One had cancer, and it was not, and the other one was young 51-year-old woman, mom of an 8-year-old, just had a heart attack and passed. And it really does serve to put it in perspective. It really serves to put it in perspective. What am I doing now? How am I, you know, focusing on the right things? How am I, you know, trying to have a positive impact on others? And, you know, I think that's what we're all thinking about right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and B, I know, you know, again, last Friday when we talked, you talk a lot. It's kind of I love it because it's like so correlated to Sarah and Mindy, this idea of self-work, right? Mm-hmm. Doing the work, which again, as a leader, you talk a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of self-work has come from me during this time. You know, from the start, I haven't put on the news. I don't watch the news. If the damn world was going to end, like, I would just be dead, you know? But I just felt to go in and, you know, we are dealing with a lot with our business. I am dealing with a lot in my personal life. You know, and then I'm dealing with, I'm experiencing, because I'm very conscious and aware of energy. You know, I'm very conscious and aware of oneness. And so when you're conscious of something, you can't not feel it or see it or experience it. And so for me, you know, I've just been using this time to really pay attention to how I react, to pay attention to how I eat. I mean, I've always played around plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, you know, I've always played around with my diet, as you can expect. Under normal circumstances, I would travel a lot, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously that changed, but what I said to myself is I really want to use this time personally to really get my shit together, right? Like, what am I eating every day? What am I drinking? How much water? I've been working out every day. I've been walking. I've been paying attention to myself, paying attention to ego, paying attention to how I love, paying attention to how I give. And, you know, with the intention on the other side of that to come out of this, if there is an out of this, but to just get to a moment of a really beautiful awareness and accepting of everything exactly the way that it is, you know. You know, so
I aspire to that.
Yeah, I mean, sister sames, man. It's to be here right now, that shit is hard.
Yeah.
You know, to really truly be here, to be in this moment where all I can be doing is talking to you guys right now. I can't do anything else. What else am I going to do? You know?
Yeah.
So I've been embracing that in all of the things that I do, and making sure that I am truly doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a personal thing going on, not to take too long. And it was really taking me down. You know, I was really stressed. I was really like upset and anxious, and all kinds of things were happening with my body. And then I looked up and I was like, wow, B, you want to be doing that. Oh. Because I'm choosing that.
Right.
I'm choosing that. I'm not choosing, let me sit down, let me be calm, let the people that I've hired do their job, right? Like, I have not been choosing to come at this personal thing that I'm dealing with from a good place. I've been choosing to come at it from an anxious place, from a stressed place. And then I'm over here doing some dumb shit and trying to figure out why do I keep running into this brick wall? Well, you keep running into the brick wall not to use myself in the third person, would be you keep running into this damn brick wall because you're doing the same shit every single time and expecting a different result, right? And
I think what B's saying, I think about this a lot, this idea of purpose and intention.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously we have a very close relationship. Oprah's on the board. And when we finished the big physical tour, I mean, I can't believe on March 7th, I was with 15,000 people in Denver. We took the content team and we pivoted it, and she and I spoke, and we ended up doing a 4-series virtual tour every Saturday for the last number of weeks. And we also made the decision to make it free and available to everyone globally, because we felt that people needed to have the conversations right now. And, you know, if there's a human being that stands for purpose and intention, it's certainly her. And so to hear the honest conversation and voices, and, you know, every time, you know, I go through one of those, I have a takeaway, you know, as well. But this idea of choosing what is going to be purposeful and for what intention right now and focusing on that, I think is so important.
It is.
It's interesting. I had the opportunity to go to the Vision 2020 tour that Oprah and Michelle Obama and Mindy were hosting at Barclays. And one of the things that stuck out for me, and it's remained in my head throughout this entire several months, and I think will always, is she said something, Oprah, I think it was Oprah probably, was, I'm not scared of failing because I don't fail as who I am. I'm scared of other people watching me fail. And I think as a leader, no matter if you're CEO, you're running a team, whatever it is, there, for me in particular, as these last couple of months, we've had so much extra stress. You've had everything else on top of it, trying to figure out, you know, economic impact, tough decisions around staffing, shutting down stores, whatever that may be. And just knowing that there's always somebody sort of watching that, I think just compounds everything. We had a couple of questions and I want to pull those in. I know I had a bunch more, but I want to pull those in. You can't change who you are as an organization during a crisis, but you've all pivoted and you've all sort of adapted. What inherent cultural attributes enabled that pivot for you as a leader or company?
I think for us.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry, Sarah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think for us, it's that dialogue with our customer. I know that sounds really trite, but we've always been talking to her and with her. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just thinking back to like the day after the election, you know, we had some sort of pantsuit email prepared because I think, you know, regardless of where you are in the political spectrum, we all thought Hillary was going to win. And then suddenly we were like, ooh, can't send that email anymore. And so we ended up just sending a letter to our customers saying, hey, like, again, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, today's results were surprising, and would love to engage you in a dialogue about what we can do as a brand to get more female representation in politics. And so we've just always been talking to her, talking with her throughout this crisis. And, you know, so we sent around similar messages, especially when COVID first struck, and then when George Floyd's incident, you know, really took over the world. And I think we haven't been afraid to be in communication with her. And I think as a result, sometimes, you know, people tell us to shut up all the time. You know, we'll get emails like, so you stay out of politics, you're in the business of making dresses. We get that all the time, but it's just so not who we are. And so I think as a result, our customers, you know, they respond in paragraphs, essays. They have a lot to say to us too. And I think that's always helped us set our true north and pivot the business, you know, whether that has to do with merchandising or marketing or what have you. That firsthand feedback is so helpful.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have been, since our inception, a very purpose-driven company. And all our employees, really think of themselves in helping people transform lives, or helping them look at their life or be healthier, et cetera. And I think because of that, there was one vision in mind as to what we had to make sure we could continue to do and do better. I also think, and Cate, that I'm a culture junkie, and I think culture defines you. But it's a culture, and we've worked hard over the past number of years of collaboration, of support, of making sure to check in with people, and really think of what ultimately is going to make the whole company successful. And I think that's been very important, what everybody has been focused on.
B?
We've been focused on, not because we necessarily knew that this was the path to go, but ever since the beginning of all these things, we've been very vulnerable. I have been very vulnerable. I have fallen on my sword many times. We had a great opportunity to go viral with something with a commercial that we had with Target. With that, we sold more inventory than what we actually had. And there were transitionings happening, and nobody knew what was going on, and things were just haywire. So I just chose the path of of probably most resistance. And just got out and was just like, yo, this is where we are. I'm sorry. Every single sample, car stock, anything that was in our office, we were just willing to send it. If it meant that we were duplicating your order, if it meant that we were just sending you something because we didn't have it, we just did that. And we spent a lot of money doing that. But I just wanted our customers to understand that we are with them, right? And we have always kind of taken that position, and exactly, yeah. Like I just feel the best way to get through is to be the most authentic as possible. So you guys will hear me. I don't alter anything. If I want to say it, I'm saying it, right? Because that's what I choose.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, I've also wanted to hear our customers. I also, I just want to be here with them, because if it is not for them, there is no us.
Absolutely.
And so for me, my customer means everything to me, because they support it. They help my life's work be able to be kind of the new household name of feminine care. And none of that could happen if these humans did not spend their money, especially because a lot of those humans that spent their damn money did not know that they were not going to go to work the next day.
Right.
And so yeah.
I think just hearing this, Cate, it's interesting how, like for me, and it sounds like for many of us on this, it was basic survival, right? There was a survival mode that kicks in. And I think, like, going into your gut instinct, you can have all of the models and advice in the world, but you're leading with your gut, and you're in the trenches, and your instinct, I think, certainly for me, is sort of kicked in more than ever. And it's sort of like you're making decisions on the fly all the time. Some of them won't be right, but you've just got to sort of move forward.
Something.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, Juliet. I think, all three of the organizations, but also including Worth and an organization like Luminary, we serve at the pleasure of our community, right? We have customers that buy our products, but they're really the community that keeps us going, right? If every single customer didn't like your product. To Sarah's point, there are those that'll say the not nice things, but then, there's the overwhelmingly big number that say, you've been there for me. I got this product, even though, there was a supply chain issue. I didn't even know you had elastic pants. And I gave it out, right? I didn't know there was digital, coaching sessions for W. So there's this community, and being there for the community is what keeps you going, right? Obviously there's the financials and you want to be there, but I think for us at least, it's, I've got to be there when this is over, right? And I've got to be better when this is over, and I'm going to do my damnedest. And if it's not good enough, this is all I can do. Mindy, I know we only have a few minutes, but and I don't know if she's on, but your your head of human resources, your chief human resources office, Kim Seymour, who's an unbelievable woman, wrote a piece internally as a Black executive to your staff, and then shared it more broadly with the world, which we actually, you'll see this later today, we're putting it as our feature for our content newsletter for Luminary, because I thought it was so empowering and impactful. And then, she was interviewed by Forbes, but all of your organizations, whether they're 10 people or thousands of people, have had to deal with, yes, coronavirus, all of this stress, and now all of this racial injustice. And we commit ourselves every day to building diverse and equitable and inclusive environments. And I thought we couldn't, go with this conversation without asking, what has changed, or what are you doing? Maybe you're not doing anything differently, but how have your employees, and Mindy, I'll start with you because I watched you.
So I'm very, very fortunate to have brought in Kim Seymour as my partner. And I think this entire situation, or whatever we want to call it, pandemic, it's really highlighted the critical relationship between the CHRO, or Chief People Officer, and the CEO. She is my critical partner, advisor, and we've been very much, along with my Chief Communication Officer, my CFO, et cetera. One of my goals when I joined the company was to really focus on diversity, both within our employees, our board. I mean, we now have a dramatically different board. I have 6 men, 6 women, 2 Black women. My leadership team is more diverse. We started a big focus on underserved communities and health disparity. But when the murder happened of George Floyd, I was devastated at just what was happening. And we got together and I said, we're not doing enough, and we're not doing it fast enough. And we had a town hall. We certainly issued a statement, but I said, we need the action and we need it quick. And we did a town hall, and going back to vulnerability, I got very emotional. And I said, we certainly made progress, but it's not enough and it's not fast enough. We can do better and we will do better, which ended up being the headline. And just coincidentally, for my Inspire series, the afternoon after we did the town hall and we talked about this and said we were going to be hearing from all our Black colleagues' voices to help us, on make these decisions, I interviewed Ken Chenault, who's former chairman of American Express, and we had a very frank conversation about what needed to happen. And I think, it just ended up being a series of events. And then about less than a week later, because I was very careful that you just don't throw something out there, because I don't want to do anything that's not sustainable. And won't really have impact. So we talked to, our Black colleagues around the world in the field, in the corporate office, and said, what are things that we feel we can make a difference? And you know what? I learned a lot. I learned a lot that we still had to really be more accountable, right? And be more measurable. So we committed to hiring a head of inclusive leadership. And actually, we're announcing it tomorrow. We're promoting someone from a gym, which we're very, very excited. We created a Black advisory group, which will help our brand and communication efforts around, how we're thoughtful. We're pledging to the CEO Action for Diversity. We created new affinity groups, all of that internally, a Black employee development program. We actually are externally, we are donating $1 million to various organizations, but we're also matching all employee donations to those. And we are going to highlight, because on our e-commerce site, we sell our own product, but we're trying to build a wellness marketplace, and we're going to focus on Black-owned and founded business, and we're requiring diversity hiring at all points along the ecosystem. And so the other thing that we feel very strongly about is we have had forever an academic advisory board for our science. We have a youth and family advisory board, and we're creating a Black wellness council where we're going to bring people from health, academia, and business to help try and have an impact on this health disparity issue with a focus on that. And I would say, I said to the organization, no matter what we put out publicly in today's environment, someone's not going to like what you did. I said, but as long as we can live with the 80-20 rule, that 80 are really positive and 20, and it ended up being 90-10, to be honest. And look, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. But if we know we're doing the right thing, and Kim has just been such a strong voice, and the Forbes article that she spoke to, and she never expected to become a celebrity, but when truth comes out and you have the right partner and you have the right voices and you do things with the right intention, that's what makes a difference.
Yeah. And I want to get to B and Sarah, but that accountability is so critical. B, on the honeypot side.
Mindy, first, can I say that that is so beautiful. Everything that you've done is not that you need to hear it from me, because who am I? But I love that you said you don't want to do anything that is not sustainable. Because a lot of what's happening is people are being reactive, and it's almost better for you to not say anything if you don't truly believe it. If it's not truly what you want to do, it's better to just leave it alone. Take the flack that comes from that, right? But if you're doing
those are such true words, B.
Yeah,
such true words.
So I think it's beautiful that you can say that, and also, like, you have done more than what some of the, your organization is large, but you've done more than what a lot of these huge, colossal conglomerates, could do. And I think that I just want to applaud you for that, because that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, with Honey Pot, we are a Black-owned business. Not everybody in the company is Black. I don't really give a shit about race. I think that we're all human beings. And for me, I just want to treat human beings well, right? Doesn't matter to me what you look like, what you sound like, how tall you are, any of that. And so I just try to make that be the fabric of what we do. We serve humans, right? And not only do we serve humans externally, but personally, I serve the humans that work with me in this organization. For me, none of the people that work here work for me, they work with me, right? All the people that we serve, we get to do that. And so I just try to be extremely conscientious of that and appreciative of that, and have a remarkable amount of gratitude for that. And, I think, some of the thing that I want to focus on which we're building towards right now. We are very small, so it's not like, you know, we still run like a bootstrap business, you know. But the thing that we are doing is I said this earlier. I want to focus on healing, because that is at the root of all of this, right? There's so many things about what's going on right now that are unconscious things.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these people that have so much hate in their heart, we don't know what their life was, who taught them, how did they grow up, what their experiences were, right? And even though, you know, some of these cops have done something that's absolutely terrible, right? I still don't necessarily know what their life was like. And for the people that, you know, may not understand that, you know, I'm not empathetic to what they did,
right,
or what anybody who has any kind of hate in their heart, what they do. I'm not empathetic to that, because I think that, but at the same time, I understand, like Toni Morrison said, if it takes me as a Black woman to be on my knees for you to feel power, there's something remarkably wrong with that. And that speaks to some kind of an illness inside of you,
mm-hmm.
right? And so I want to, in the change that I want to be in the world, and what comes from my heart is to offer mechanisms of healing that we as a brand invest in for the people that choose to take it. And so, you know, we're focused on that. We're focused on building a very strong, lean, efficient, a real business, to be the role model, to be the comp for some other girl who's raising money. You know, we're you know, so I'm personally, I'm focused on healing for myself, so that I can work to heal other people. You can't heal nobody if you can't heal yourself. And so, yeah.
Well said. Well said. Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we got to take her off mute. We don't want her not to hear. And I know everyone, we're going a little bit over, but this is such a good conversation, and I want to just wrap it up after Sarah speaks. So go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all. My fault. First of all, I saw that comment that Amy made.
Yes. Oh, good. I was going to get to that. So go ahead.
No, I thought that was such a good point, and I think I always struggle with that too. Especially my board is basically all male except for one independent that I appointed, and it's interesting. Like even last week, I was like, I really didn't want to do that call, you know, because I was so upset about my grandmother. But I was like, but if I say anything, you know, what would they think? I think that it's a consistent dilemma that always like plays out in my head. I take pride in being authentic and communicative, but I think truthfully, there's always a part of me that's worried about that. And but I also think like it's important to do what works for you. I think someone actually said something along those lines. You do,
yeah.
you know. I don't think there's like a one size fits all recipe. And I think some people have a work personality that's very different from their personal personality, their private personality, if you will. And that works really well for them. And I respect that too. And so I think to a certain extent, it's trying out different styles and seeing actually what resonates most with you. I don't think authenticity is always, the only way to lead. I think it's a style that works for some, but if it's a different thing that you want to pursue, I think that's more power to you. You have to do what's most effective.
Just so for everyone, if you haven't seen Amy's comment and or question that Sarah's alluding to, it was saying that when we were talking about authenticity and vulnerability, her question was, as a woman leader, it feels like there's a double-edged sword. Vulnerable equals too emotional, authentic equals too opinionated, constantly being held to a different standard that actually feels like it is against my voice and gut. Lady CEOs, how do you deal with that? So that's what Sarah is bringing in. And I think—
Sorry, Cate, I jumped in.
No, that's fine. No, it's great, because that was going to be my final question anyway. So, but I think what you're bringing in too is kind of what both Mindy and Bea are talking about as they've been dealing with all of this emotion and racial injustice and bringing much more of a focus on the diversity. And I'm saying now, I saw it this morning, I was on a call and someone said, we're no longer calling it D&I, we're calling it DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I like that. So, you know, how you're bringing that from your everything that you do, Sarah, into everything you lead with every day. So, on the female, like Mindy and I've had this conversation, right? Do women leaders have different characteristics? I mean, answering that, you sort of answered that question already, but if there's anything else you wanted to add, because I think you do lead with your authenticity, your vulnerability, your openness, your transparency.
You know, and I think one lesson I actually have been picking up in the past couple of weeks, so like similar to what Mindy said, we've also done a number of town halls, and actually I was kind of, I thought we ran a super transparent company. That's what I take pride in. And I sent an email out to my team on Sunday, the Sunday when the protests started. And I had a number of Black female employees report incidences of racism that they had experienced,
Wow.
you know, either with our customers, or maybe it was some sort of incident that happened in the office. And I realized, you know, I think of myself as being a pretty open, easy to talk to CEO. So I just thought I would hear about these incidences, and was surprised that it took something like this for me to hear about them. And honestly, I was ashamed and embarrassed. And so that kind of then also led me to think it's not enough for me to be open and empathetic. I want to continue to be those things, but these systems and policies really do exist for a reason. And you have to complement, I think you're kind of leading from the heart with just very no nonsense policies that really get at the root and can address these things tactfully and swiftly. Like, you know, Mindy said, like, not quickly enough. We're not addressing them quickly enough. And so I think that's the work that I have cut out for myself as CEO, is it making sure that those systems properly exist in our organization. And you know, we're a startup, but that's not a good enough excuse, right? And so I think the need to take, I think, Amy, I mean, you raise a good point. I think it's combining maybe some of the things that make you an authentic, approachable leader with really just, you know, corporate policies that have long existed for a reason, and making sure that you find that happy balance. So I'll leave it there.
Great. Well, I know we're a few minutes over. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Bea. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you. And Juliet, I'll let you do the closing. I just would say, it's wonderful I'm actually a customer of all three. So it's wonderful to be a part of your communities. And this was such an amazing conversation. I would tell all of the participants, thank you for taking the time, your time, another Zoom to be on with us. We will have another one of these next month, and hopefully at some point we'll be doing these in person again. But thank you, and Juliet, over to you.
Yeah.
Wait, Cate, can I say something?
Of
really
course.
quick? I feel to say something. I think if we're going to use that acronym, right? Because I too have a very male heavy board. Actually, I'm the only woman on the board. But what I try to don't read my authenticity and my okay with being vulnerable to also mean that that I do not have a no nonsense state of mind. What I know that comes a lot of times with a male-centered board can often be it can come from an egotistical place, right? One thing that I use to my disposal is to try to call that bullshit out where it is, because I should not have to monitor myself as a woman who has emotions, just like men do,
Yep.
right? Because I'm a woman, because I have a vagina, because I have a period, because I have all these things. I think it's important for us to know that, right? No, we should not live too much in our emotions. No, we should not always be vulnerable. But at the same time, you should also be able to do that when that needs to be done. And if you have a board who is there for you to help you to build your brand and do all the things that they're supposed to do, right? They need to be able to understand that and be centered in that and get out of their head, right? And if that is a moment that you have to have a real conversation, have one.
Yep.
But listen, that's all I have to say. I'll leave
We
it
have
there.
a whole 2 more
Right.
hours. Mindy, because I know, Mindy, you're very vocal on this too.
Yeah. No, I think there's going to be a sea change in the boardroom coming out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are really going to recognize that those companies that had the right voices, the right diverse voices, have managed through this much better than the ones who don't. And the role of a board member and the role of the executive committee, I think there's going to be a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree. Juliet?
Thank you. Cate and B and Mindy and Sarah, it's so inspiring just hearing such a compassionate and open and honest conversation on leadership. A huge thank you. I think just the fact that you're showing your personal and vulnerable side of the CEO experience and the soft skills and the empathy and the self-care and the emotional resilience and responsibility that we have as leaders, I think we don't talk about enough, and I think it's something that we need to talk more about, and I applaud you all for that, because you're all an incredible force of leaders and an inspiring group of people that I think we can learn an awful lot from. So thank you so much, and a huge thank you to the team at Luminary as well. I'm glad that we're doing this on a monthly basis, because I feel like we're just sort of opening up something that will be an amazing thing to continue together. Most importantly, thanks to all of you that joined us today and for your great questions. We hope you enjoyed it. Please do share any feedback with us. We'd love to hear your comments. And any sort of topics you'd like us to cover going forward, you can email us at community@worth.com. We'd love you to sign up for our Women in Worth newsletter as well, which you'll find on worth.com. And also check out our future events this week. We have our book club launch tomorrow and our next normal series on philanthropy and impact on Thursday. And there's a roster of incredible events with Luminary as well. In the meantime, be kind and stay healthy and stay well. And thank you all again. Speak to you soon.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, men, for joining too.
Thank you.
Love you, Cate.